right. It is the Ben Mulroney Show, and we always love being joined by our good friend Tony Chapman. He's the host of the award-winning podcast Chatter That Matters and founding partner of Chatter AI. How is Chatter AI? Like, how do I use Chatter AI?
Chatter AI, what we really do is we use AI to garner incredible insights on how people think, feel, and behave. Okay. So if I'm working with a client, it could be Humber River Health, it could be Patterson Food Group. Where is the consumer moving and why? Okay. And when you understand that, you're in a better position to place your brand to help them get to where they want to go.
So what sort of information has it been trained on?
It's we're training on a variety of different things. We're looking at sentiment online. What are they talking about? We're looking at economic trends. Yeah. We're studying best practices around the world. Yeah. But the big hook is we're also getting into scientific studies that have laid dormant because 20 people gave them citations and they pat themselves on the back. But there's billions of dollars of scientific studies on human psychology, how we behave, how we take on risk, how women buy versus how male
you're
buy.
Putting all of these studies into
this sort of cauldron, and then coming out with what we do very well, saying based on that, here's the insights that matter. Here's the ideas you should be thinking about. Here's a strategy you might need to find that point of differentiation.
Okay, so you sent us two ideas, and we're going to go through both of them. They're big and bold. Yeah. About the CBC and the others about education, public education. Did Chatter AI come up with it, or did Tony Chapman come up with it?
I came up with it, but I used Chatter AI to make sure I was on the right path.
Okay. So you have what you call, well, you say it right here. I have a transformative idea for the CBC.
Absolutely.
Right there, I got very interested because look, all things being equal, we talk about defunding the CBC. I feel that the people working there are leaving people like me with no option but to say, shut her down, because they're behaving in ways that are, they flaunt the rules. They spend money that they shouldn't be spending. They compete against private corporations for the same ad dollars, and the stuff that they put out there, nobody watches. And then they sit on their high horse and say, well, Canada needs us. Without us, it will fall into a dystopian hellscape. And for that reason, we must get more money from the government. All that stuff makes me say your time has passed. You believe you have a third way.
Yeah. So let's take the $1.8 billion and let's say you're no longer a broadcaster. What? You're no longer broadcasting. You are going to fund with that money our superpower and content for Canada. We've got all the talent all over the world, but like every other industry in Canada, we send to monetize it outside of the country. Yeah. So we want to bring back the Drakes and the Weekends. We want to bring back Justin Bieber in music. We want to bring back Cameron in the movie studios and say, look, we've got this capital. We're going to feed ideas and we're going to populate the world. We're not talking about content that Canada wants. We're going to talk about content the world wants. Okay. And we're going to monetize that IP. We're going to get streaming revenue, merchandise revenue. We're going to create IP. We're going to create series.
So you're saying there's no broadcasting anymore. Are they streaming as the CBC?
No.
Okay, so they're not the CBC anymore. They're the CCC, the Canadian Content Corporation.
Absolutely. And we completely transformed the leadership because instead of being on your high horse, we're getting entrepreneurs, maybe Michael McMillan who runs Blue Hat. Get people in there and say, okay, we've got this capital now. You don't have to go and produce that stuff in Hollywood anymore. Yeah. We've got all the studios, Pinewood. We produce more content for Hollywood. Produce it here and own the IP here. Yeah. So we start creating these series and these platforms. You know the case study? The BBC. They created the BBC studios. Yeah. The EastEnders was the beginning of it, and Top Gear and so many different epic things in the documentary. They sell 1.8 billion pounds a year of revenue, and they make over $200 million profit. So why aren't we doing that here and creating these incredible creative jobs in Canada versus just being a production arm of Hollywood?
So shops like CTV and Global would buy content from them.
Absolutely, but so would Netflix and Amazon and all over the world. Guess what? We've got this multicultural thing. What does Iranians want to hear? What do the Persian population want to hear? Because now with AI, content creation is so inexpensive. It's the ideation. That's where Canadians excel at, script writers and everyone else.
And so, so listen, it would definitely change. They wouldn't need that big, beautiful building anymore.
And I don't want a big bureaucracy. I want a small group. It's an investment fund, and it's funding entrepreneurs. It's funding the Canadian entrepreneurs and say, I got a great idea for a show. I've got the Weekenders signed up. We're going to do this whole thing of finding the next international talent. Yeah. We want to find the next big pop band, boy band. We're going to build it in Canada. We've got the talent here to do it. Yeah. But again, the appetite is the content's got to be sold to the world, not under this auspices of Canadian content because no one else is producing it. BS. We are what we watch on TV. That data exists. Build that kind of stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's pivot from that to public education. And there's a difference between sort of the public education system and the teachers that populate it, because there are some great teachers out there. I mean, I've watched the teachers that
you remember your great teachers.
Well, I'm growing up, I didn't have a ton. But I went to a French private school, so from France. But I've watched the teachers that care for my kids, and they cry at how much they love those kids, and so that is not what we're talking about.
What we're talking about right now is when my nieces started showing me what they learn in school and how the fact that Marxism and Leninism and socialism is celebrated, and anything to do with being successful or capitalist or an entrepreneur is shut down. And in terms of identity politics, all of a sudden, white people are the sins of the world.
Yeah.
So I'm looking back and I'm going, well, if all of this exists, first of all, let's teach identity politics. Human nature is nasty. Whoever the dominant population is tends to go after power. Torture and slavery happened all across the world. I'm not saying that I agree with any of this, but teach that. Don't just make it look like it was white, the colonists. And the second thing that I talk about is, okay, if you really believe in socialism, now that we've got Venezuela and Iran, why don't we stream in people into the classroom that actually live under those regimes and talk about what it's like when ideology takes over, power corrupts.
Yeah.
You take away free speech. We just talked about it. You take away the permission, and next thing you know, it becomes mediocrity. And you're dividing a shrinking pie. So the handful of people that are controlling the ideology are getting filthy rich, and the rest of the people are starving. We've got to change that because these kids are not being taught what they need to be taught going forward.
Well, and what I've said, we were talking about this indoctrination, this brainwashing that a teacher in British Columbia was proposing about queering the natural world. Taking kids out in the forest and showing that like the amorphous nature of clouds is representative of the amorphous nature of sexuality. And I said, well, time is binary. And for every minute that you're doing that, that's a minute that you're not teaching them how to properly work with AI.
Yeah.
And they're doing that in China, and they're doing that in charter schools, and they're doing that in private schools. And you got to ask yourself, why are you trying to get them so young? Like if these are complex notions that you want them to learn, that would be better suited for when they're in university. But you don't want to get them in university because by university they've staked their claim to critical thinking, and you don't want them thinking critically.
And why don't you want them to win medals? And why don't you want them to come first? And why don't you want to teach them how to compete? Well, because what critical thinking is.
Because competition is a product of colonialism and white supremacy.
Yeah,
you didn't know that? You didn't know that?
I know, but this.
Oh yeah,
and I go, but this.
No, first, second, third. No. That's a hierarchy. We don't want to teach hierarchies. We break down hierarchies because a hierarchy. The hierarchy is patriarchy. Yeah. We don't want any of that.
Yeah, and this is what we've got to fight back on as parents. We just sit back and going, oh my God, I can't believe what they're teaching my kids. Your kids are going to graduate, and before you know it, they're going to be helpless in a society where AI is populating every corner, where jobs are competed for in the cloud, and they're going to sit there and go, what happened? Why didn't anybody teach me to win? Yeah. Why didn't anybody teach me how that idea can be monetized?
Winning. We threw away winning a long time ago, and we replaced it with participation medals.
Which is entrepreneurship is the only way this country is going to move forward. Yes, you can harvest our gold, you can harvest our trees, you can take our oil out of the ground, but unless we have intellectual capital, creating our own IP and our own energy, this country is going to fail because it won't have a tax base to support those teachers that somehow I think money grows on trees.
Yeah, years ago we worried that Canada was becoming like a satellite office for countries like the United States, where they'd come up here. We'd cut down our trees, we'd send them our trees, and then they would make the table and they'd make the chairs.
And send it back to us.
And we buy that stuff back. And now that's happening. That's supercharged because the same thing is happening technologically.
Absolutely. As soon as we've got a big idea, we start scaling it. We can't get the capital here anymore. And I don't understand. We got $1.5 trillion in debt, and we haven't found a way to capitalize and scale our own businesses here. They got to go down to Silicon Valley to raise that capital.
Well, that's because we're so risk averse. There's not enough capital. So what they do is that they place the safest bets they can, relatively safe bets.
But you buy your big banks, you buy your big telcos. But you know what? The entrepreneurial community, and if we just take our time as a country and realize these kids have got to come out willing to fight, to win, and to survive. Unless somehow we find a way to continue to print money and just hand them money.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the kind of society with energy.
Hey, Tony Chapman, great to have you in studio. Really appreciate it.
All right.
We got a text that said, we were talking about HAL 9000 earlier in the show. It said, HAL, Ben, did you know that HAL from 2001 is IBM shifted by one letter in the alphabet? H equals I, A equals B, L equals M. And as a matter of fact, I did know that, but thank you very much, Pete. Thanks so much for watching the show. Now, if you enjoyed what you saw, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode of The Ben Mulroney Show.